This alert: former Florida Senator Marco Rubio is now America's top diplomat. Rubio was sworn in as Secretary of State this morning, and he comes into the all-important role as conflict in the Middle East is reaching a pivotal point. This past weekend, 3 Israeli hostages held for more than a year by Hamas terrorists were exchanged for 90 Palestinian prisoners. The planned 6-week Israel-Hamas ceasefire is holding as 4 more Israeli hostages are scheduled for release this Saturday. The developments, though, come amid skepticism from President Trump, who expressed last night that he is, quote, not confident the ceasefire agreement will last. Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon, has just returned from being an invited guest at the inauguration. He joins us live. Ambassador, you could forgive President Trump for worrying that the ceasefire might not be held. There is some breaking news in the last hour that there's been a knife attack in Tel Aviv where, what do you know about this? 2 terrorists attacked?
An hour ago, 2 terrorists stabbed pedestrians in the middle of Tel Aviv. They were wounded. One of the terrorists was killed. Another one, we are looking for him. We will find him very soon. But, you know, in a very peaceful night in Tel Aviv, another terror attack. And it shows us that this glorification of terror, of that culture that we are facing with, the ceasefire is not enough. You know, we have to uproot evil completely. And I believe we will do it in Gaza.
Well, let's just be clear. One of these alleged stabbers was a Moroccan who arrived in Israel 3 days ago on a tourist visa, but he had a U.S. green card.
Yeah, that's what we found on him, on his body of the terrorist, that he came from the U.S. and he held a green card. So we have to look at it. Okay.
So that said, what do you make of the president's skepticism about the ceasefire holding?
Well, I think the president, he knows that we are in the Middle East. In the Middle East, anything can happen. I think that the first stage of the ceasefire, I have no doubt it will be completed. You know, I think it's the interest of both sides. You know, but look what's happening. We want to release babies, the Bibas family. He just celebrated his 2nd birthday last Saturday. We want to see the family back home, the women, the girls. And the Hamas, they want to see murderers who are convicted killers coming back into Gaza. So that is the equation we are dealing with. But after that, after 42 days, no one knows what will happen because we have to renegotiate the next stage. And I think the president, he meant for the next stage that he's pessimistic about it.
The Bibas kids, they're known as the redheads, the Reds. They're on that list of the first 33 hostages to be released. Do we know their fate, whether they are alive or dead? By the way, this is a live picture of Tel Aviv at the moment.
So, you know, they became the symbol of the atrocities of October 7th. You know, because the terrorists came to the house, kidnapped the babies with their mother and their father, separated them.
Horrifying.
We haven't seen a sign of life from the Bibas family. We hope that there is a miracle and they will come back alive, but we will have to wait.
And it looks horrifying if they come back in caskets.
That will be devastating. You know, the entire nation will not be able to digest it, and I hope it will not be the case. But we are prepared to all scenarios. We have seen the cruelty of the enemies of Hamas when they actually kill babies on sites, burn them alive, so they can do that also after they kidnap them into Gaza.
All right. That said, there are big developments. Obviously, Senator Marco Rubio is now Secretary of State. Today, there was a hearing for Elise Stefanik, the former representative Republican who is Donald Trump's pick to be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Let's hear what she said during that hearing, and then we can react.
If you look at the anti-Semitic rot within the United Nations, there are more resolutions targeting Israel than any other country, any other crisis combined. We need to stay committed to ensuring every hostage is brought home. I've met with many hostage families. This position, we need to be a voice of moral clarity on the UN Security Council and at the United Nations at large for the world to hear the importance of standing with Israel. And I intend to do that.
What would you hope she tackles first at the United Nations?
Well, it was a very impressive testimony. She said out loud, I stand with Israel, and she performed her moral clarity, and we are expecting her to come as soon as possible to support us in the UN. And we have to push back against anti-Semitism, Liz. It's 2025, but you still have anti-Semitism in the United Nations. Since October 7th, not one resolution condemning the atrocities of October 7th. They are not capable.
Not one.
Not one. How can it happen? You know, the United Nations is supposed to promote peace.
1,200 Israeli and American and many other, from many other countries, civilians murdered. And the United Nations, which is supposed to be that organization that decries this kind of thing.
Exactly. It was established 80 years ago, after the Holocaust, in order to prevent scenes like the Holocaust. But when they saw the atrocity, they said, we cannot condemn Hamas. They're not capable of doing that. So I'm sure that the Ambassador-elect Stefanik will come with a lot of energy and help us to push back against that.
President Trump just signed an executive order suspending, in essence, all U.S. foreign assistance programs for 90 days because he wants to see whether all this spending aligns with his policies and his plans. Israel is has received the second most in U.S. dollars in aid behind Ukraine. I mean, there's a big distance between what Ukraine's gotten and what Israel's gotten. Israel is unlikely to be affected too much by this because these are deals and plans that go way back and they are pretty much set in stone when it comes to that. But this does indicate that Trump has a larger theme of his goal to cut back on government spending. Are you concerned at all that we might not, just because this is his plan, see as much going to your country?
Absolutely not. Not at all. I met a few of the cabinet ministers, Secretary Rubio and other ministers, and I can feel the support for Israel. They understand that we are allies. We are fighting the enemies of the United States. So it's like cutting the budget of the U.S. military. I don't think it's on the table. I don't think it's happening. And I think it's a good decision of the president because you have to look at what's happening in organizations like UNRWA or other UN agencies that receive money from many countries, and actually the money goes to terrorism
terrorists.
or incitement against the U.S. or against Israel. So I think it's a good decision of the president.
Well, we hope to see the next tranche of hostages released on Saturday. Ambassador, thank you so much
Thank you, Liz.
for being here.